What's up, watch enthusiasts? Skylar Santana here. Let's talk watches. We're going to be a little bit more casual on this one. We're going to talk about my journey and where I began with watches, which is the collection that we have here today. And I wanted to keep it, very light, very easy transition in. So, first thing we'll start off with is my customary wristwatch check. I've got the SKX 009J1. Everybody who is into watch collecting knows of this watch. Of course, I customized the bezel on this one to a ceramic. So that's what's on my wrist today. And then we have my collection of where it started off, right? Everybody's starting off their journey. You're probably starting off very similar to mine. We have some fashion watches here. We have mechanical watches. We have homage watches. And we have do-it-yourself, a customized watch that I put together the first time that we're going to showcase here. So the first one that I want to show you guys is my Michael Kors. This watch I got 17 years ago. It was a watch that my girlfriend gave me at the time, now wife. It's been in my collection even before I started collecting, right? This one is a fashion watch by Michael Kors, diver style. It stayed in the box for about, I want to say, 5 to 7 years before I started really getting into watch collecting. And it's in mint condition. It's one of my most treasured pieces that I have. And it's very sentimental, like how you guys will probably have your first watch that was given to you. That one is really, it hits home. The second watch in my collection that I have is basically, it's a brand that I'm not even really too sure about, right? And then there's a story behind this watch too. This watch I actually wore at my wedding. I took this straight out of my father's collection. I just went to his watch box and I said, hey, I'm getting married. I probably should be wearing a watch. At the time, I had no idea what it was. I wasn't into watch collecting just yet. I started my journey in 2020, and it just became part of my collection as well, something that I can't replace because it just has that great sentimental value too. I'll get the name of it for you here. Arquebus is the name. It's a quartz watch. It's about a $75 watch, but I mean, to me, it could be $1 million watch, right? It has no value. It just has that sentiment. Now, the next one in my collection is a Biden. No relation to the president. It's a very popular watch that you could find on Amazon. I think the watch is only $30, but this one here is really, really when I started experimenting with watches, when I really said, let me get into it. Let me see what it's about. Also a quartz. I've removed the bezel on this before. This is when I was really messing around with opening the case back and seeing what it would take to get into a watch and change the battery, just getting me more familiar, more comfortable with watches and, just experimenting with it, right? Like when we start getting into watch collecting, we start realizing that there's different kinds. There's mechanical watches, there's quartz watches. What are they? What are the differences? So, that's just really what my experimental watch was. Now, I have also this watch here. We all know this museum style. This watch was given to me by my mother. Back in the day, right, I thought that this watch was really like a luxury watch, right? Like this was like a Rolex type of watch. And uh, for me to collect this early on was really, really special. I remember being a kid and seeing this in the windows of watch brands. This one is a Movado, obviously, a Movado Bold Quartz. And I remember as a young kid just passing by the windows and seeing Movado watches and it being so commercialized. I'm like, wow, like that's really like an expensive watch. I really wish to own that one day. So very sentimental here too. So you guys are already catching on that this is like a local theme, right? One tip I'm going to already throw at you guys. When you're getting into watch collecting, the easiest way for you to obtain them is to do a little research on which watch you want to add to your collection and then utilize your birthdays, utilize Christmas, tell people what you want, what you like, and that'll be a lot easier for you to add to your collection early on without having to break the bank, if you will, or, not be too sure when to add those watches. It gives you a good periodic time when to do so. Next watch I have for you guys is going to be a Fossil. This is going to be Fossil, also a quartz fashion watch. We're going with a theme here. As you guys can see, a lot of you are starting off with fashion watches, I'm sure, because that's what's more commercialized and what's more attractive starting off. This one was given to me by my brother. This was on my birthday. I asked him specifically for this watch. And the funny thing about this, and another tip we'll add into there, is I primarily bought this watch for the band. I love the watch, right? The watch is the watch, the band is the band, and the bands can be switched out to any style, any color, any collection. So one thing I want to give you guys is don't buy a watch for the band. that can be swapped out. There are little pins on each side of the lug that retract, and you can swap out the band to anything that you may like. So I did love the watch itself, but what sold me was the band, and it actually wasn't the band that's on it now, right? I bought an aftermarket band and I put it on there. This is more of a parachute style band, and I love the watch. It's very sentimental to me as well. It'll stay in my collection forever. So I learned about beater watch, right? Something that you can wear to work, something that you can wear on a daily basis. You don't have to worry about temperatures. You don't have to worry about knocking the watch around if you're having a vigorous day throughout the day. So Victorinox actually commercialized their watches, and their selling point for this watch is, I mean, they show videos of running tanks over this thing, right? The metal inside here for the dial is pressed, so it's all one piece to create that look, and it's just screw down crown, of course, so you have a good water resistance, and it's quartz, so you don't have to worry about those mechanical parts in the watch getting knocked around on your day-to-day basis. And as you can see, it's a brushed with a shiny look to the metallic, so it's a nice contrast on there. I also switched out the band to this just to make it a little bit more versatile, putting it on the wrist when your wrist expands in the summertime and shrinks in the wintertime. This way I could always just throw this on. It's quartz, so it's always on the right type of timing, and it's just good to go anytime that I need it. And this was also given to me by my brother, so very sentimental watch as well, especially being able to fill in that category for beater watch. And this will never leave my collection. 2024, I look to downsize in my collection. I had roughly about 40 pieces. I think I'm now working with around 35, 34. I just want to consolidate and really look to see what pieces in my collections are going to stay and test the time of staying in the collection, and not, really appreciating what I'm wearing and being attached to it. So the next watch is actually a watch that I got part by part. This was a do-it-yourself watch kit. Now, this is a bronze casing. The watch came completely separate. This is the first time I dived into a mechanical watch, right? We're all learning when we're starting off, and then we're getting into finding out what a mechanical watch is and what's the sentimental value. So with mechanical, just so we throw a little bit of knowledge in there, it's basically like dead technology, right? A mechanical watch, even the most expensive and most luxurious watch that you can buy out there, be it Rolex, be it Tudor, whatever it may be, any quartz watch is going to beat it out as far as tracking time, right? Because at the end of the day, that's the technological advancement from the Christ quartzes by Seiko when they came out with the quartz watches to be dead accurate with timing and everything else. But the Swiss brands were able to romanticize that technology of the mechanical watch to where actually enthusiasts look more towards mechanical watches for that reason. And once I learned that, that was kind of like my combination of the two. I was getting into mechanical watches. I was very curious about customizing watches. And what made it easier is I bought a one set kit that came with the case, came with the dial, the movement, the hands, everything was separated for me to put together. There was videos on it to put the watch together in order in the safest ways. I think it came with extra hands on there. So if you guys are looking to get into customizing watches, I recommend doing a kit where it comes with all the tools necessary and everything else to do that. From there, I grew my skills, and I have a bunch of customized watches. I got one more here that you're going to see that's more of a homage style, right? Because that bronze dial is more of a custom where it doesn't look like any other watch that's out there on the market. But then we have this watch here, which is actually from Pagani Design. And you might be saying to yourself, well, it doesn't have a Pagani Design dial, right? It has my last name on the dial, and it was customized. So that was where I really felt a lot more comfortable customizing watches. So I took that Pagani Design. I love the Rolex sub no date. Didn't want to spend the money for it. When we start off collecting, of course, obviously, we're a little bit more conservative. $1,000 watch sounds outrageous when you can buy a watch for a couple of $100, especially with, like, again, that mechanical watch history being dead technology. Why would somebody pay thousands of dollars for a watch that essentially could be better for a lot less? Well, as we go on, we'll get into it and we'll understand it a little bit more. But this one really hits home because it has that homage feeling to the Rolex Amana, which has been homaged by many different companies even official companies out there, not just independent groups. The Rolex Sub is probably the number one watch that has been homaged, and this one, I think it was just shy of $100. The dial cost me about $30 to $40 to customize with my name on there, and it hit home after that. I wasn't really connecting to the Pagani design logo that was on there. Once I figured out that I could make the Santana watch and make the Santana dial rather, and put it to that watch, it really hit home, and I've really become attached to that watch altogether. So that was the homage Rolex Sub. Now we have a Citizen solar powered Blue Angels edition, right? A pilot's watch, chronograph. This one's just an all arounder. This one's going to be able to be accurate on the time and the date year round. As long as I have this by a windowsill, I think even regular inside light will charge this and keep it running to a certain degree. But at the end of the day, still considered a quartz, right? Because it is solar powered, and solar powered is still utilizing a battery that's just recharged by solar energy. Therefore, still having that category, still having that ticking motion. But this one was also gifted to me by my mother, and I almost got this one in the blue strap that came with it. I think if you guys are familiar with this Citizen Blue Angel edition, which you should, it's a pretty popular watch. It came in a blue and yellow band originally, and I was this close to grabbing it on that band. Again, I was still kind of in that atmosphere of falling in love with the complete set of a watch instead of removing the band altogether and just buying the watch for just the watch itself. But ultimately, I ended up getting it on a steel base, a bracelet rather, because I realized that getting it on bracelet is always going to be superior than getting it on a strap. And the reason why is getting a strap aftermarket, getting something that works with that watch as far as it fitting in the way it does, and as far as it really matching the style of the rest of the watch, it's always going to be a lot easier and a lot affordable for you guys to do that. So that's something that I definitely recommend. If you like a watch and you know you want to put it on a NATO, get it in the metal first, get it in the bracelet, and then get the band after, because you're going to have plenty of straps that you can find at a lot easier rate. So that's something that I recommend for you guys as well. But last in the case, at least, is my Seiko Arnie. Again, attached to all these watches, but this one here is attached to my childhood. I remember growing up, I watched the Predator movie. If you guys remember the first one with Arnie in it, he actually wears this watch in the movie. And I've watched that movie maybe 100 times over. It was the first real action movie that I gravitated towards and watched a bunch of times. So a lot of sentimental value on this guy here. This is the SNK 025. Very popular watch thanks to Arnie. Great diver watch. It has a digital display. It has an analog display and everything else. So this one is also very, very, very sentimental to my collection. My wife actually got this for me in my couple of years ago for my birthday. She knew that I really wanted this watch, and a lot of people who review this watch will speak about one thing on it. They'll speak about the fact that how they're surprised that the watch fits on their wrist, you know, how it actually isn't too big. And I'll throw it on real quick just so you guys can see. They assume that because Arnie was wearing the watch, it has abnormal, freakishly large arms. They're a little worried about putting this on wrist and like, hey, how am I going to look on this? But I'll throw this on my wrist. I'm a little bit bigger than average on wrist. We'll get the measurements for you guys a little later, but just so you guys can see this on wrist, not too big, fits well, right on the center. Lugs don't hang off. And I actually customized the shroud on this watch, and I threw it on a metal band aftermarket, right? Because when I first originally purchased the watch, it came with a rubber strap like Seiko normally does. But I felt like it needed something a little bit more rugged. It needed something a little bit more fancier at the same time. And I thought the two would really combine it really well with this bezel and this metal PVD coated black shroud that I replaced on it aftermarket. Now, Seiko SKX 009J1. Many of you know what this watch is, right? I would say maybe 4 or 5, maybe a little bit longer than that. This was like the watch to go to. I think when it first was released, we're talking around sub $200. It was rated for diving. It was like the dive watch to go for as far as affordability, as far as it being functional and everything else. So this was on everybody's wrist up until the SKX, the 5 edition came out. So this one's no longer available. Seiko no longer produces this. And this one actually climbed in value, right? So the SKX 007, which is your standard black dial, um, went for, I think it's upwards now close to $1,000 if you're getting it brand new and you're getting everything factory. It's been homaged, it's been modded many times over. So you guys got to be careful when you're looking for this watch, if you are in the market for it, to make sure that everything is factory. And if you are getting a factory watch in the 007, which is just a black bezel, just like how the Seiko Arnie is, right? That black bezel. This is what the bezel looks like on the SKX 007. That one is going to be a pretty penny. We're talking about close to $1,000. I think the '09, this model, we're floating around $500 to $600. So the value of this also came up. But I chose this one over the original because it had a little bit more color in it, had a little bit more flair. If you get it in the right lighting, you'll see that very deep, deep, dark blue color in it. And then, of course, once I changed the bezel to it to ceramic, it really gave it like that, up-to-date look on it. It wasn't flat with that aluminum bezel that originally comes with it. So love this one to death. My father gave me this one in Christmas time, and it's absolutely not going to leave my collection, and I'm absolutely attached to it. So all these watches, as you saw, are watches that I'm attached to. That's how you guys are primarily going to start off your collection starting off. One thing that I would give as a recommendation for you guys, if you are starting off your collection, I've said it once, before. You'll see some videos that I released as a vlog style. Slow down when you're starting your collection. I think the biggest takeaway and the biggest advice anybody who has any experience in collecting is going to give you is that you're going to start too fast and too quickly adding pieces to your collection before you really understand and you're really able to gain the knowledge and gauge what really is going to work for you down the road. And you're going to end up being stuck with maybe 50 pieces, and now you have to downsize from 50, and there's a lot of pieces that you're going to have to remove from that collection because you're just not going to be able to get to them, and or you're going to fall out of love for them over time, just knowing that your style, your preference is changing. So that's my biggest thing that I could give you guys starting off. Just really take your time. Take your time to go on forums, watch some YouTube videos on watches, gain the knowledge. And this way, when you guys are choosing your next piece to come into your collection, you'll be able to make a better decision. I thank you guys for joining in. Subscribe if you like this kind of content. We're going to be talking more casual watches in the future, very near future. And I'm excited to start this journey with you guys. I'll see you till next time. Peace.